Hello, I'm Guladia Khan. Welcome to SNG Talks, a series by the Subnational Governance Program that works on public financial management, planning and governance, fiscal space, innovation, and action research. This series will bring in experts from different fields to talk about and discuss issues and solutions that would lead to better systems for better services. Today we will talk about public financial management with a special focus on disaster risk financing, which in the current COVID situation is proving to be a big challenge for PFM experts all over the world. We have Mr. Faisal Rashid with us today, the public financial management expert at SNG with over 15 years of work experience in policy and reform. Thank you, Faisal sir, for joining us today. For the uninitiated, what does public financial management mean?
Right. I think just to answer this question, it might be useful if we, in very simple terms, try to highlight the meaning of public financial management. So, if we start with the definition, the public financial management is a field of economics or management or public policy in which you have two basic streams of work. One is revenue mobilization and the other is expenditure management. So in the first instance, revenue mobilization has to be optimum for good public financial management. Because you want to raise revenues for government, but you do not want to cripple your economy by overtaxing it. So the first objective is to generate sufficient resources without disturbing the business environment in your province or your country. That's the first important part of public financial management. The other part is expenditure management. And on the expenditure management, the objective is that through the use of available resources, we must produce public services most efficiently and effectively. So when we say efficiently, we mean that the services should be produced with least amount of money at least cost. And when we talk about effectiveness, that means that the expenditure by the government should bring about a change. It should help the government achieve its target. If we take the example of education, it must increase enrollment, it must increase quality of education. If that does not happen, our expenditure is not effective. So to make sure and to put systems in place that your expenditure is efficient and effective is actually the other section of public financial management. So this is basically public financial management. So we can start with that.
Thank you for breaking down such a complex definition for us. So why are PFM reforms so important for the public sector?
So I think to start with, one must understand that public financial management involves public resources. So if you waste public resources, you are not, a civil servant is not creating his personal loss. It is a loss to public. So in public financial management, you have to create systems in which you can be satisfied that the people using resources are using them efficiently and effectively. And as you said, this is not really a simple or a very easy kind of a field. It's a complex subject. However, if you understand it, it becomes easy for you. But the real complexity, in my view, comes from the fact that it involves a very large number of stakeholders in it. And it is the collective outcome of the interactions and actions taken by all these individuals that provides you the final output of the public financial management system. And that is what makes it really complex. So for example, if you talk about the provincial government of Punjab, this government has 4 main departments collecting their revenues. Similarly, if I only talk about taxes, if you talk about non-taxes, it involves another 15 or 20 departments. If you talk about expenditure management, it involves more than 40 departments of the government of Punjab. And then if you go to individuals, the number runs into about over 1 million people. So dealing with so many people makes it complex. So you have to make sure that the concepts of PFM are understood by each and every one of them. And if you go higher up the ladder, as the responsibility increases, for example, a secretary is much more responsible and should be more accountable for what he does in public financial management compared to a normal civil servant. So you have to make sure that everybody is aware of the principles of public financial management in accordance with their responsibility. And that is a tough job to do. So that involves a lot of capacity building and a lot of back and forth, experimentation and learning, lesson learnings from your mistakes. So that's why people say that it's a continuous process.
It's a continuous process and it leads to a lot of transparency in the systems, which leads to better systems.
Exactly. So transparency is one of very, very important themes of public financial management. Since we deal with public money, we have to make sure that anything that we do is in public domain. Information is available for people to really, investigate that, to check that, and ask questions to people who are managing those resources.
COVID-19 has wreaked havoc with economies and PFM systems all over the world. Post-COVID-19, how do you see PFM systems changing, especially in the developing world?
I think, as you know, that this is a disaster of enormous scale, and to some economists, it may be even worse than the Great Depression of 1930s. So we have to first understand that we are dealing with a major disaster. It's not a minor thing. And how does it impact the economies is very clear that because of COVID-19 the GDPs have dropped. So economies are not growing, they are shrinking. So countries and cities and provinces, they don't have as many resources now as they used to have. So once the GDP has shrunk, your revenues, the public revenues which actually come from the GDP, they will actually go down in their size. And that creates problems for the government in functioning, because government needs resources and government needs adequate resources to service them. So in the current situation, the biggest challenge for the government is, number one, to make sure that they have adequate resources to run the governments and provide services to citizens. But apart from that, I think the bigger challenge for the government is that they use their taxation policy levers and the other levers available with the government to restore the economy, to stimulate businesses once again. And that will come through a long drawn battle against this pandemic and its impacts, because businesses are suffering really bad. Poverty is increasing. So the governments have to, I think they have to develop or rethink their strategies on how to respond to disasters. And that will involve rethinking their taxation policy, their budget strategies. For example, in case of Pakistan, I think the current big themes in the budget would be health facilities, because health has become a very important subject. It was always important, but it has become more important after COVID. Similarly, I think stimulating the economy or creating stimulus is extremely important. The third area is social protection. So in such situations, you have to make sure that poor people are protected from the impacts of pandemic. So I think these themes, they were always important, but COVID has made them more important. And they have to be sort of pursued in the light of the current situation. So we have to customize whole our budget strategy and taxation policy in the light of that. But more importantly, I think in public financial management terms, this pandemic has made us realize that disaster resilience in PFM systems is extremely important.
How has SNG as a program, how is SNG as a program working towards helping and supporting the government in improving the public financial management system, and also, of course, with as regards to disaster risk financing?
So, as you know, SNG is a governance reform program, and public financial management is a major theme of this program. Almost more than 50% of the program deals with public financial management. So a number of actions are being undertaken to help Government of Punjab and KP, improve its public financial management, and they deal with helping government improve its budgeting. For example, in Punjab, the budgeting is still input-based budgeting, whereas the modern budgeting system requires you to have an output-based system of budgeting, in which people using public resources can be held accountable, for provision of certain outputs. In the current system we have, even if whole of the budget is utilized and nothing is achieved, you cannot really decipher that from your budget documents or from your accounts and your monthly statements, and that's because of the way we actually make our budget. Similarly, one of key focus of the program is on revenue mobilization. So we are trying to help government create more fiscal space for itself, so that they can use that fiscal space for better service delivery to citizens. And one way of that is actually helping government collect more revenue, without sort of creating problems for the businesses. So we are helping government improve the tax policy and tax administration as well. The other area is efficiency savings, in which we are looking at some of the expenditures of the government, and we are trying to identify wherever there are some inefficiencies, we are trying to remove that. So that's another important area of work for SNG program. In the current perspective, I think responding to this current disaster was really important for the government, because the budget was fast approaching for the next financial year, and the previous growth strategy available with the government was not as relevant anymore as it was before COVID-19. So I think one of the major tasks for the program was to come up with that kind of a strategy, work with planning and development and finance departments to actually do that. And the department has come up and with supporting the government with development of RISE document, which provides a holistic, comprehensive framework for the next budget. I think that's a big achievement for the program, and that will go a long way towards directing the allocations in the next budget towards resolving the issues created by COVID-19.
Thank you for joining us today on this very important discussion.